Hello, welcome to the 40k Spice Center. I'm joined by my two co-hosts for today, John the Gamey Git. Hi, John.
Hello.
I'm doing great. And Logan. How are you doing, Logan?
Yeah, splendid. Nice to be back on the show. Thank you very much.
It's lovely to have you here. It's great. We've missed you. Have you been keeping well?
Yeah, I've been having a lovely time. Not painting. I've been having a lovely time working and traveling.
Oh, nice. Okay, nice. You been anywhere fun?
Yeah, I went to Paris actually for 4 days. It was a delight. I'm not a huge fan of Paris. I've been there many times before for work and other such outings, and never really been much of a. It's never really taken to me, but yeah, I went with a lovely travel companion, the missus, and she loves it, and her enthusiasm transferred over to me. So I think that was the problem all along. I'm a miserable cunt. No one would have ever have guessed it, though. Of course.
I personally don't think that. You're nothing but upbeat in my eyes. You're always hype for me. So, yeah, stay back. You're a wonder. John, thanks to Dave for subscribing. By the way, what up, Twitch chat? I'm going to say hi in a sec. John, you well? You keeping well?
Yeah, I'm really good. I've had the week off, so I've been actually not drowning with things to do. So I've actually been able to get things done and not feel like I'm rushing them, which has been nice.
That's good. That's always the best. I've had knowing that I'm not staring down the barrel of any more events. I think for the next month, I've also been able to chill out a little bit this week, which has been good, and I've been keen for basically, and I've even made a start. I'm jumping the gun a bit in asking, in telling everyone, but I've even made a start on my orcs, which I'm very excited about.
Nice.
To paint up.
Live on the stream, I need to know what your orcs do.
Yeah, wow, unsealing the book on stream.
Well, that book is only for non-infantry, so unless it's Blood Axe.
Wow, okay.
You're going to be Blood Axe? You're going to be Blood Axe, Rob?
No, I don't think I am going to be Blood Axe. What's exploding sixes? Goths. I'm going Goths.
In combat, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm Goths.
I'm making a more combat army than I am shooting army. I'm having support shooting, not actual focus on shooting, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried that on the weekend.
Yeah. How did that go?
Yeah. Well, I played 6 games, Rob.
All right.
Didn't run out of time.
I'm taking Squig Hogs.
We'll cover that.
I'm taking Squig Hogs for your unboxing on stream.
Oh, okay. So not bikers.
No, not bikers. Not bikers. Squig Hogs. I just want to take a load of squinkers and just run around and have a great time.
The plague marines of the Orc Codex.
Listen, I don't care. You and me have said, Logan, this is a 2020 promise, Twitch chat. Me and Logan together as a team, yeah, absolutely are going to a 40k event next year. That's a cast iron promise. Yeah,
We're storming the mid-tables.
but enjoying ourselves. So I'm looking forward to it a lot. It's going to be really, really good. You want punchy guys with those guys who go to fight. How much spice have I missed? 0 spice. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So Twitch chat, what up? Scrivo Dudade, thanks for resubscribing. Now, Tom is missing, but Tom has an event at the weekend, a job interview tomorrow. He's at the back of like 3 or 4 different events, and he's just a little bit overloaded with work and other stuff. So he's taking the night off, which we super encourage, and I hope he's okay. So I hope he's not too stressed about the fact he's not here, and I hope we misrepresent all of his opinions pretty drastically.
And that's my intent for the evening.
All right, there's not necessarily a focus for the show this evening, but there is some stuff to talk about. There's rumours of the upcoming 40k changes. Specifically, some of them are pretty massive. There was the leaked story about a 40k invitational event this weekend, which was, I think, leaked on Tuesday here on the show. There's there's the event from the weekend and all of the results and the kind of fallout from that, because it's been the first major, as well as have a little discussion about the coverage. And there's also John went to an event and some other stuff, so loads to do. Before we get into any of that, though, Logan, how are those 5 intercessors coming, bro? Come on. No.
It was Vanguard Veterans.
And no, I'm not asking like that, John. This is encouragement now. I'm like, I've met.
Yeah, I
This
know.
is in my
I
head.
know.
Me and Logan are going to this event. John, you're coming. How's it going, bro? Are you got it? Are you on it? What's going on?
No, but I absolutely at the forefront of my wants list is to find the time to sit down and finish the fucking thing.
Okay, this is good. This is good. After that,
I need to get out of BattleScribe and at my painting desk.
yeah, talking about Scribe, something to bring up. There was a rumor very recently that it was going to be abandoned. It was put out recently, as early as yesterday. The rumor came out.
What I'd heard is the lead developer of the app, not the 40k and Age of Sigmar and all that data, but the people that actually do the app haven't updated it for quite some time. So I think that's why people are thinking that's what's happening.
Right. Okay. So it's just less that no one's actually got any information or confirmation. They've just seen.
Not that I've heard.
All right. I mean, that's pretty big news if that ends up being the case, right?
Yeah, because it doesn't matter if people as a community are updating the information. If there's not a application to put that stuff through, it doesn't really kind of help, does it?
No.
Absolutely.
I mean, it depends how good. Oh my god, I did not know you had a dog.
It's I'm stepfather to the dog.
Okay, what is the dog's name?
Her name is Lolo.
Oh, hello.
And what breed is that?
It's a long-haired Chihuahua.
Oh, it's one of them things.
Such a
Okay.
cutie. 100%.
She's an absolute
Yeah.
darling.
Look. Oh, okay, that's great. Lolo the Destroyer.
But she was barking at the door.
Oh, she wanted in.
I thought, let's come and she's coming to sit on my lap now, so she'll join in on the podcast.
All right, perfect. Yeah. So, John, no more rumors other than that for BattleScribe.
That's all I've heard going around, but I never hear kind of anything more than the same thing kind of spread from the same source, it seems, in multiple chats. So I've not heard anything further than that.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, then that's good because BattleScribe going away would be a major issue, right?
For all of Wargaming, not just the Warhammer communities.
Well, yeah. I don't know what else. I don't know how many other game systems I know, but BCP is actually massive for many a game system, but I'm not sure.
BattleScribe's
really?
the same. So things like Frostgrave, all that stuff is all in there. So
Well, then it feels like there's no way the developers just giving up on it, right?
To be honest with you, if the developers don't touch it ever again, it doesn't matter because it works perfectly fine. I just need the updated points. So
Yeah.
exactly.
as long as people continue to plug stuff into it, because it's an app, right? So I don't need it to be. The only issue is you won't be able to use it on your phone, I guess, but on an iPhone. But on an Android or on a PC, it should run fine.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, well, good. I hope that doesn't happen anyway. Just mention the fact that BattleScribe. So, Logan, after the 5 Vanguard vets, how much more we got to do?
Depending on the list, I absolutely need to do a captain with a jump pack, a chaplain on a bike, 15 troop models to be decided based on how many points I have on the list. At least 15 Vanguard vets, 5 Wolfen, some Dreadnoughts, 3 Cyber Wolves, and a Whirlwind.
Okay, all right. Okay, we got a lot of work to do together as a group. Okay, a lot of motivation.
Yes, we're going to pull through. It's a lot of motivation.
Okay.
You've just described my first game on the weekend. That's near enough what I faced.
What, literally that list?
It is possible, Logan. No, near enough. It didn't have the whirlwind, but
I feel like the Whirlwind is just a cool choice. It's just a show-off choice at this point.
No, I just want some more fights last and some Overwatch turning off stuff without giving up a bore against Grey Knights and whatever that stupid fucking Thousand Suns secondary is that they can take and get a free 15 points if you've got a psycho.
Yeah. Well, okay, good. I'm confident that you'll get there. Is what I'm thinking. I'm not sure if that will be the case. John, you had an event this weekend. How did it go?
I went to Twisted Dice's Twisted Onslaught.
I had tickets
something.
for that.
Yeah, of course you did. Every event I go to, there's always Logan's name on it up until about a week before, and then he remembers he doesn't have an army.
I'm just going to bring you one. I'm just going to make one for you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to paint you one.
But yeah, it was 34 players, I think, and it was 6 games. So interesting that it was 6 games. I'm still finding 6 games in a weekend really rough to play, I've got to admit. I don't feel like I'm fighting fit yet for that, but it was my first outing since Battle of Britain doing Orcs.
Okay.
And I found it quite tough, I've got to be honest.
What did you find?
I was actually looking up, just to mention on the Fighting Fit site.
Yeah.
I was doing some research. And you know those walking sticks that are actually foldable seats that old people take into the countryside, and you can plant them into the ground with a spike on the end?
Yeah.
You can get those with like rubber bottoms instead.
Yep.
So I was looking into getting myself like one of those, so I would be able to sit, but standing at the table.
like a
I thought
like
that
a standing chair, sort of.
Yeah. I thought that would be excellent, because it would take the strain off the lower back, and the feet and the knees, which is generally that's what goes right after day one, I think.
Yeah, you try on the first game of day 2, and then halfway through you sit down, and then you stay
I mean,
sat
to
down.
be fair, there's always the pro choice of just taking knights, right? Like, your movement phase is very small. The amount of dice you roll is very small. It's a lot of just reacting to your opponent's dice rolls and not doing a lot of yourself. Like, it's how much work you want to put into your list is really... I mean, we don't talk about this enough, but you probably, if you want to have a more chill weekend, just design a list that's more elite and doesn't need as much work putting in, right?
Oh, 100%. When I used to go playing with my 90 boys in mid-8th edition, I needed to make sure that I was ready for it, because by the end of that weekend, your lower back's fucked.
It wouldn't be if tables were higher.
It wasn't.
I don't know why. I don't know why this is the situation. I don't know why all the tables are so low. But apparently, I don't know. I don't know why all the tables are so low. It confuses me. Logan, it seems like you got a thought on that.
They're like picnic tables a lot of the time, aren't they? The fold-out ones that you get in non.
Yeah.
What's the height of the tables in the T Sports Arena? Has this
we put them at work. So you've got kitchen table height, and then there's kitchen worktop height, which is an official measurement. So for kitchen fitters, they're all the same height, and we do it at kitchen worktop height, not kitchen table height. They're different. So
someone's made a very valid point in the chat that high tables are an issue for people with wheelchairs.
Okay, we'll just get them a fucking winch. Like, let's do that. Just put them on a special table. Like, just get them a special table. Just one table can be lower, 2, 4, whatever amount, however many people, we can help them out. But and then everyone else can have the high table. I think the likelihood that the amount of low tables are going to eventually put a couple of people in wheelchairs is an issue, right? So something to be discussed one time.
Yeah. Most of the tables are for people to sit down at, aren't they? And we're not sitting down, so that's the issue.
Yeah. I can't sit down at a table. I personally get worked up. But anyway, but so
fun. Stride around, and reach in, and
just move in.
Can't get a good dice roll sitting down.
No, you can't.
And you need to be able to see all the angles as well, I found. The minute I sit down, the minute I start, they're missing hidden units and things.
So John, so you were where was this event held?
It was in Leighton Buzzard, down in Bedfordshire, so about 40 minutes north of London.
What did you take and how did you do?
So I took Orcs. It was my first go at an event of actually taking 2 clans, and I think that was probably actually a mistake because of how I structured my list.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, definitely.
So all my vehicles were freebooters, and all my infantry were death skulls.
Oh,
so they were obsec. So I had things like I had 2 squads of commandos, 2 squads of storm boys. In each detachment, I had truck boys as well, which seems really fun. but weren't actually that practically useful. I found in the end, I wasn't using them well. I think that's the lesson I really learned from this. Is I had all these cool things in my list that I wasn't using very well. I had a kill rig, which really enjoyed using. I just feel like I could have got more out of it if I was not using it for the first time on Saturday morning. And I had 3 death copters as well. I used the new kit of those, and I really enjoyed them. Dropping them down to just go, I'm deleting that was fun. And I had a Wasmon Blaster Jet and a Dakka Jet and 3 Mega Track Scrap Jets as well. So a bit of a mixture of a list. And then I had the Beast Boss on Squigosaur as well, who I'd given the trait to be -1 to wound. So he was pretty unkillable, which was good fun.
I was going to ask, do you think you had an MVP from the weekend?
I think it was probably the Squigosaur boss again.
Oh, really?
Because in so many games he stayed alive just that little bit longer because I gave him the beast hide mantle. He had the -1 to wound, so most of the time Space Marines were trying to wound him on 6s, and then I was getting a 5-up invuln and a 5-up shrug against any type of wounds. He just was sitting there and staying alive for a bit longer than they wanted, which is great.
Good. I'm excited about that because he's next on my painting table. Is the Beast Boss on Squid?
And it's a fun model,
really fun.
And he looks intimidating on the table. People were just like, I haven't seen one of them yet. He's scary, and they'd go for him, knowing that they just wanted to kill him,
And he was pretty tanky.
Yeah, so he tanked quite well. I probably could have not lost him in a couple of games if I'd not been quite so idiotic with deployments and stuff. But I think that was my big takeaway this weekend. Is I was trying to be too defensive. I'd defend, like I put everything behind ruins, and then have to drive all these vehicles round to actually get anywhere, which is
the big problem with a lot of those units that are good.
Do you think that's because you've been playing defensive style armies?
Yes, I think because I've played essentially a year of playing Dark Angels, where I had land speeders and a lot of infantry. The terrain didn't really bother me. And now playing with these really fast vehicles, I'm having to go around the terrain. And some of the stuff like the Mechanicus style terrain, if that's a big blob of that, I'm going around this massive big fuck off bit of building, I can't do anything there. And it made me kind of then go, these death copters are quite fun for this situation. And it made me appreciate them more.
Yeah, I think people are going to be replacing some of the buggies with death copters anyway. Because of the restrictions. And it's obviously...
And the points might change to reflect, because if they're going to punish the buggies as well, it might make them have the better value.
People were looking at death copters anyway, right? When the previews and stuff were coming out, and then they just saw the fucking rocket truck and the scrap jets, and it was like, okay.
And they were just point and click. They're still great because like the scrap jets having so many guns is great. I will miss that if I don't have that in my list. But
you still running planes?
I used a Dakka jet and a blaster jet on the weekend. I found putting them and not too much shooting. So I had 2 squig buggies, 3 scrap jets, and then the 2 planes. It was a trap trying to use that for freebooters. I spent more of my first game trying to kill something in the first turn and not quite kill anything to get that +1 to hit. When in reality, I should have been playing the mission.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I tricked myself into trying to use something good, but then using it badly.
Okay.
And I think sometimes it's like if I'd gone all Death Skulls, for example, in one of my earlier games, I got hit by a load of mortal wounds. If there'd been all my Death Skulls, I'd have been more sort of suited to the situation. So there was a lot of this kind of, I was trying to be clever and ended up doing something stupid as a result, I think.
I mean,
which is often what happens when I try to be clever with lists.
I think that's a learning situation with lists and generally Warhammer anyway, right? Like, that's just one of those processes. Okay, where was it held? Quick question, because you're at an event. I'll just go through the list of questions. As always, table height?
They were dining, like kitchen tables, so I think too low, because by the end of the day 2, my back was done.
Food?
The food was, I brought my own packed lunch, so it was amazing. Because I knew that it was going to a corner shop or ordering something in, so I just thought I'll bring something that I know I can eat because I've got some great dietary requirements.
Okay. How was the terrain?
Terrain was good. I felt that they've kind of reacted well to, because historically they had a lot of very narratively led tables in 8th edition where there wasn't the ruins and all that sort of thing, but they've adapted that stuff quite well. and repurposed a lot of their old sort of GW terrain to make some cool kind of functional terrain as well. So I think it was good as a selection. I don't feel like any of them kind of that I played on let me down. Their previous event, I played on one table that I did question how useful it was. Ace then did kind of amend it for the next round. So I think they've kind of reacted well to people's feedback, which I think is good
That's
to see in a
the best
TO.
you can do, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's never going to be
Just
perfect.
while we're on the subject of terrain, has anyone seen the new WTC? And this is not the singles format, but the not the singles format. Yeah,
the map pack.
The new
for
map
the
pack. It
teams.
changed. Have you seen it?
No, when did that
So,
come out?
I think maybe it came out last week. And again, I'm sure like this has changed. It's changed several times since release, but it's been the one I've paid the strictest attention to because I think it's been the one that's been most thoroughly thought out of all of the terrain packs that exist in 40k. With a shout out,
it's the one that definitely felt like it had the intent to try to be cool, kind of all encompassing and try to fix the problem so you didn't have one map that was kind of not sort of dealt with, because I didn't they used to have it where it was 3 different table layouts depending on which mission you were playing.
Yes,
as well. It's kind of mix up a bit.
And shout out to Pete for sending it to me. So Pete Pratt, because it was actually pretty interesting. Me and him had a really interesting chat about it. It does so. Previously, it was normally 8 obscuring L's, and then there was normally 4 crates, grates, or forests. Either like a bit of each one, or sometimes it was like 2 and 2, or sometimes it was 4 and 4. But effectively, you had 12 pieces, and they were all a mixture. They were all like it was normally 8 and 4 basically. But I think now, based on the ones I've seen, they're 12 and 12. So it's just 12 L's across the board. So a lot of terrain. John, you've seen it already. What do you think?
And it's got one crater thing in the middle on the one I saw. It felt a little bit more samey to me, but I think it'll do a better job at kind of giving TOs a solution of, here you go, this will work for these 3 missions. Whether it's going to be a nice, engaging and different game, I don't know, but it's the intent's there for the competitive angle, right?
Yeah, I think actually it's pretty nice based on some of the terrain I've seen recently, and ignoring the results from the weekend with the Hive Guard, not Hive Guard. You know what I mean? Like it's personally I like the changes. But I think it's fair to say I don't think I've played enough. But you think it's going to be meta warping, or you've got some thoughts on that?
For me, I think the amount of ruins on it, that instantly made me think my list will probably skew more into either fly keyword and lots of infantry, because vehicles don't perform well around lots of ruins if you're not careful, unless they are shooting around it. And so to me, that was the instant thing I thought, because my one experience playing it on WTC stuff was I'm struggling to move because I've got cavalry or I've got something that can't just go through the terrain. Yeah. So I think there may be that as a consideration. I don't know if that's already something people, when they're playing this mission pack, are already doing.
It was a consideration on the old packs as well, anyway. Yeah. Because, obviously during lockdown, everyone was running TTS and the WTC
just
packs.
Playing it, yeah.
The WTC terrain packs were the most prevalent ones used, and this was all an issue then. And obviously, it's still an issue now. I just think that the keywords are too restrictive, more so than, because we need the terrain, right? Because we're in this weird phase of 40k that happens in every edition where we've like realized what the best things are in terms of multipliers, and everyone's doubling down on that. And it's turn 1, I'll shoot 1,000 points of your army off the board if I can see it, or if I tag you, you're dead. And we need the terrain. But what the abundance of terrain means is that whereas it was probably better in terms of raw output to run 20 however many buggies for orcs.
Yeah.
The fact that you literally can't move the things on a board means that you go towards the planes, because they completely circumvent that and they can go wherever they want, which is a problem in itself. So I think it's a problem with the keyword and just how restrictive movement is through certain things. I think if it was perhaps a movement modifier more so, then you've got to go around the block. Like, it just basically makes cavalry effectively just useless, fucking useless in the game.
Oh yeah.
And everyone's just got fly keyword infantry. I'm just gonna Kool-Aid man it through walls, and it's standard practice, and it has been for 2-3 years now, and it will continue to be so.
Yeah, I don't think.
And you're going to continue having to do the shit that you're doing, which is a 15-point turn to get out the car park at the end of the night at the club.
It was soul destroying. It was so soul destroying doing that. I was like, this kill rig is so fucking big. To hide it, I had to put it behind a ruin, and it takes 2.5 turns to get it fucking in view of anything. And by that point, the rest of the army's dead.
I'm sorry, John.
That's the point.
Yeah, I think that's actually really interesting and leads us into maybe the next point. So go check out that map pack. I think that's worth looking at as always. Leads us into the kind of the next point, in that there are some pretty significant rumours about some key changes for not terrain necessarily, but for 40k and how you score. And I wonder if that might start. Because it is, Logan. Everything you've just said is absolutely true, and we've heard that the winter FAQ changes are going to be very, very significant. Not only to the primary and how you score the mission is the current rumor, but in addition to that. Rules changes and other stuff that I've heard. So I wonder, do you think that there's anything that could be done with how the primary mission scored that will change that? Because I personally really like what's happening with what happens with the primary. I know it's a bit like one and done and has been solved, but the fact that you have to go out into the midboard is why people take infantry to go through the ruins to get to the midboard. Like, it's important. I feel that that's a good feature of 40k now. So I wouldn't like to see that change, but I have heard it is changing. Whereas I feel the secondaries are the more redundant part of 40k.
Absolutely, the secondaries is the more redundant part. I think having to hold the primary through your opponent's turn is a really good balancing factor. And yeah, it does force you to commit. Like, we are playing a game now where we're trading units away for points, and that's how the game works, right? You throw your whole army in the bin. You get to the end of turn 5. You've got 2 models left, but you've scored 98, and you hope that's enough to win the game, kind of thing. And I think that changing the way the primary is scored is not anything that competitive players have been asking for. So that's concerning, because I've not heard anyone complaining about how the primary scored.
No, I agree with that as well.
The fact that mission secondaries are like just completely on the opposite ends of spectrums in terms of pick that auto 15 points, wouldn't touch that with a shitty stick. That's the range of mission secondaries that we have at the moment. And of course the disparity in codex secondaries and factions that don't have them as well. But yeah, I'd have liked to have seen secondaries, and even maybe like something like tertiaries opened up as well. More choice leads to better strategy and more decision making, and I like that aspect of the game. It's something I liked that I want to say Mike Brandt actually brought in at Nova, in terms of the selectable secondaries and tertiaries back in the day, and it definitely helps to mitigate bad faction matchups when you have access to a lot of different. The problem is that the imbalance means that we got into a position where the game is very it's non-interactive. there's a lot of lists out there that can score 90 points without ever having to step out from behind the wall in a lot of missions.
So can I throw
So,
something
yeah.
at you? So what
Of
Jack Crom
course.
says, I'd like to not see tertiaries, but that's because I'd like to see. I think that the secondary system could do with a big overhaul, because it feels like if you change the secondary system massively, you still don't massively affect how the game. Like, I feel like if you change the primary, you change terrain, you change a bunch of other things. Whereas I think the secondary system could get some nice quick changes. And as a reference point, the thing I do like about Age of Sigmar's secondaries, although Jesus, you talk about the ability to easily score secondaries in 40k, ludicrous, and like they're not done well.
Kill a monster. There you go.
I mean, no,
I've
they're
done
not
it
even
this
that. They're
turn.
like, stand here, 2 victory points. Like, it's pretty embarrassing. But I would love to see a secondary that you pick per turn and you complete by the end of the turn. I think that that's genuinely very exciting at the level that I think 40k is played at a competitive level. I think it gives more onus to the turn as opposed to the overarching, like the whole game, if that makes sense. You're like, I need to achieve X this turn, and then your opponent's job is to deny. I think that ties in really well with stratagem usage as well and resource management. Your opponent's like, right, okay, my stratagem this turn is to kill a troops unit. Cool. There's a troops unit. But then they spend 2 CP to overload whatever they're doing to their weapons to make you definitely get it. But then your opponent goes, do you know what? I reckon I can flip the numbers I can flip the math here. And with my resource manager, I'm going to spend some CP, make myself more defensive. And then you get a nice bit of counterplay. And there's a lot of counterplay around that, which I think would be quite fun. Whereas I feel like the secondaries are a bit ignorant. Yeah, they're a bit ignorant to the course of the game, if you know what I mean. You can stop them, I guess. You just take away your opponent.
Well, more a lot of these kind of quite easy to do ones tend to be things like the way that people do Rod. They just drop a unit in a quarter from Deep Strike. It's not interactive. That's, I guess, is the challenge. Touching on, you said about them changing the primary. My instant reaction to that is they're almost adamant they don't want to change the secondaries because they're printed in the books. Is what my brain went straight to. So it's almost them kind of going, we can't touch these. We've printed them. We don't want to mess with that. It's what kind of instantly what my brain went to, which actually I would rather they did.
What do you think?
Because the orc secondaries, for example, I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole in most of my lists, and it'd be nice to have other options. But the primary, they don't need to change that, really, do they? It kind of does the job. I think, if anything, maybe more variation on how many objectives you have to hold, perhaps.
Big shout out to our first time chatter in the chat, Orc Spit, who says print media bad. I agree.
Nice.
I agree. So talking about other rumours, the primary. Logan, you got any thoughts on the primary, or you're just not too stressed either way?
I guess when you're in that game of hold 2 for 10, and then if I deny you a 5, then I kind of win the game. That kind of makes it a bit whack. It's a tough one, right? Because great players will find the most efficient way of playing the game. It's just it is what it is, and having years to play the game is always going to be more effective than a few months of play testing. It's a given. I think that. Oh, hello, Leo. Fuck off. I think that. I think that saying that they don't have a willingness to change printed secondaries is somewhat off the mark, though, because they have changed them, haven't they? The Codex secondaries.
It's the Codex ones. There's more I was touching on.
The Codex ones. They're really poorly.
They're so inconsistent, right? Some of them are great.
Super
some are not.
inconsistent. Yeah. Somewhat like the codexes. And I guess it kind of goes back to like their reluctance to change data sheets. We've spoken about this before. Their reluctance to change data sheets, but they'll change points, which you'd think would be like changing points is actually quite complicated because we got into that situation last year where you didn't know where to look for the points. What was the most up to date? You had an FAQ, you had you had an FAQ, you had a PDF version of chapter approved, and you had a print version of chapter approved, and you had a codex, and they're all kind of battling with which is the current points to use. And having 4 sources that are out at the same time is ridiculous anyway. But I think changing a data sheet is kind of like quite central, you know. But again, it's another advert for using digital media rather than print media. It's ridiculous that they still hold to this, but it is what it is. I think, you know, just as to wrap it up, because I've been waffling for a couple of minutes. I don't see the primary as the issue. I think the missions are a little bit boring. There are a few missions that no one wants to see played ever in tournament play, that everyone avoids, and they could maybe do some more missions, maybe do some different layouts. That would be nice, but I don't think changing the way primaries are scored. I don't see how you can change the way primaries are scored and it not be a mess, because if you can score primaries in your own turn, then that would be an absolute fucking shit show, to be honest with you.
I think that's the one that we don't know enough details about yet, but we do understand there's going to be an event soon where we will get to see that, because that's the rumor. The follow up though is the thing that sounds very confirmed, like it's set in stone, is only one sub-faction per list. So so what do you guys think about that? So you can't mix detachments with multiple different sub-factions. So just one, like however many detachments you take, it's one sub-faction. John, you livid?
Didn't they introduce such a rule in the end of 8th edition?
No, I don't think so.
Match play.
Oh, 8th edition.
I'm sure there was a thing that at the end of 8th edition that was along those lines.
No, I don't think so.
I'm sure it's some. Am I just dreaming this? Because I was thinking about this because there was a whole thing where they went, but Drakari can get round it. Or is this at the beginning of the 9th when they introduced the Drakari? I don't even know anymore.
No, they were.
My brain is just gone.
They were able to take different detachment. They were able to take multiple patrols.
Attachments without being not battle forged, wasn't it? There was that. That's what I'm thinking of. To me, I'm actually all right with it. With orcs, it does feel a shame that you can't just kind of have a war that is lots of different warbands together. But for competitive play, I think it then forces people to actually look at what they can actually achieve with an army. And obviously we're going to get the exception probably with someone like Drakari because they're sub-armies rather than being sub-factions in as much as... so you'll still be able to have Coven and
I don't know if you would be
Witches,
able to.
for example, as two separate detachments.
I think that's going to be a... I think that would be a Drakari thing.
That's the one caveat I can think of. But something like Grey Knights being two separate hosts makes perfect sense to me. It always felt a bit odd that you've got two big bosses of this faction happening to work together in this very small game comparatively. So I think it'll encourage people not to just spam things as much, perhaps.
That's probably the line of argument that went over in the office as well.
Yeah.
Rather than it being
it's the narrative approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who wants to see 7 war bosses together? Everyone, but no one wants to.
I play Marines, so for me, I'm laughing hysterically.
Yeah.
Fuck all of you and your 15 different forge rods you can pick from, and brotherhoods and all that shit. Just pick one. Just pick one like we have to.
Because it's a feel
and
bad,
paint
right?
it the right fucking colour as well.
That's I'm out on that. Well, or just paint your own. I'm currently painting my my orcs as we record, and I'm just like I haven't looked yet, but I'm like, which color do I do it so it's generic? That's the color I need. They should even
not yellow, not black, not blue, and not.
Can I do orange?
Even orange is pretty safe. I've done yellow and purple because that's what I always do.
Yeah, well, anyway, my point is, I think it's a really positive change. I never liked the fact that you could cherry pick, because the fact that you could cherry pick just it minimized list diversity massively, right?
Yeah, it stops people just going right. I want as many of this HQ.
You are.
because not just the HQs, but just like, for example, getting the best of both worlds from two sub-factions, you then have to commit to it, right? Instead.
Yeah, I mean, you're just like you're doing with your orc list, for example. You're putting the killy shit in freebooters, and you're putting the whole objective shit into Death Skulls, because the two align with each other.
Yeah. It does feel a bit shallow doing it. I think
it's a great change.
I've got to admit. So
I think they've got like a good way of doing it with Marines, where it's like you just lose your chapter bonus if you have the two together. There's no kind of downside for doing it in other books, so that's why that I love it, because if I want to do it as a Marine player, woe is me, Marines, but like there's a downside to it. I lose my super doctrines. If you want to do it as any book released in 9th edition, it's all's fair, and you can just take the best shit all the time. And I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. It's going to make for less interesting list writing, to be honest with you, because I like seeing people just pull up. Yeah,
is it not going to do the opposite?
Yes,
right? Like,
it's going to make for less. No, of course it won't. You're working with limited shit, so I'm not going to see like crazy. Oh fucking hell! I didn't know if you put this in here, then it's great, because you're going to be like, I can't put this in here because the best shit's here. So it's just what it's going to lead to is just people are going to go with the most derivative sub-faction within the book.
Yeah, they'll be the strongest each time. Like Death Skulls were for orcs in 8th type of thing. Where
you're not going to bother. You're not going to bother with an offbeat one if they're clearly worse, or if they're clearly skewed too far, because you can't run all Death Skulls list at the moment because it doesn't kill enough stuff, and you can't run an all freebooters list really, because it's going to lose the primary. So you need a bit of both, and it's going to be an interesting situation. I think I'm really looking forward to seeing how the game pans out, because I think this is a huge change. Like, as a rule, this is an enormous change as a rule, like with the 9th books that are out there. So
I have a question.
We'll see what happens.
Do you not think like it'll help them like do some balance in the future, right? Like I do agree. Like, I think maybe my stance was fairly naive, but I do agree with your statement that maybe it does make it like more reductive and less diverse. But it does also feel like if there are the people who are pushing, I don't know, pick subfaction X versus subfaction Y, subfaction X is clearly better, but someone does build in subfaction Y, it becomes a more diverse list, because they didn't add a little bit of subfaction X just to make it bring up the power level, right? They were like, okay, I'm fully committed, so time to get weird. Like that situation where you're in the club and someone does some weird shit, and then you just say to yourself, all right, I'll commit. Let's get really weird. Like, not the little bit, like you step through the door. So maybe we might see that, but maybe not, in which case maybe they get the opportunity to balance those sub-factions a little bit and try and produce a bit of better internal parity. Because, like, for
the lack of balance between sub-factions is absolutely a problem, and that's why this issue exists, right? Because of that lack of balance between Imperial Fists and White Scars. Like, how do their units cost the same?
100%.
It makes no sense.
But you're absolutely right. Thank you, by the way, to Orcspit for subscribing. Welcome to the gang.
He was a first-time chatter as well, so jumped in, loved it with a subscription as well. With the big prime drop.
It's so great seeing you all. Welcome to the team. Yes, Dayton O'Brien in the chat as well. All the Canadians and the Falcon. Also help with the stats for Falcon, I assume. Having, like, again, using Age of Sigmar as a comparison, when I do coverage, might be great for WTC coverage as well, because subfaction X of Army X plays very differently to subfaction Y of Army X, right? And therefore, when you do the coverage, you're like, it's that version of that army.
Just been able to say it's Death Skulls Orcs rather than going, it's 750 points to them with this. Because whenever we've had to do it at other events where we're describing what a list actually is as just the name, as a subfaction, it's impossible.
So that's the thing. Like, there's the possibility. This is purely from like a broadcast standpoint or a content creator standpoint. If I can, I know we've spoken about this before with like Magic decks and stuff like that, where it's like the deck has a name.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's how we have to describe. You know, we go, oh yeah, he's running Forces of the Hive Mind. Okay, well I know if this is a top table that it's going to have a bunch of Hive Guards, Devil Gaunts, and the Swarm Lord, and a couple of bits and bobs, and 2 units of Gene Stealers. Cool, I know that already. That's how it should look, right?
Yeah.
In Leviathan, or if they're running Grey Knights, it's going to be 2 detachments. It's going to have 4 or 5 Dread Knights. It's going to have 20 or 30 interceptors. But from a branding standpoint, it's kind of whack, because it's like, if you're making these sub-factions, you should be tweaking these sub-factions so that they are the specialization, right? Like, they should be the specialization, rather than, I'm going to put them together and this, that, and the other. My dog's just farted on my lap, and it is absolute.
No, but you're right. It shouldn't be the data sheets. So long story short, we think it's, yes, big goldfish. Love you. Hope you're okay in the chat. What up? But what we're saying is I think generally. Ooh. The real strength, and shout out to the Art of Draw guys for this, because they're going to be on this like a draw on heat, is how do we feel about those list names becoming NFTs? That's the real kicker. Silence in the room. Absolute silence. Fine.
My microphone didn't pick up the giant sigh that I just did, I don't think. But I'm not engaging in this because that's clown's work.
Clown's work, man. That's how you do it. How, like...
I'm not being clickbaited into...
What? That's the title of the show. Warhammer lists become NFTs.
Take your vaporware elsewhere.
But people are already...
Yeah, it would be nice if we could be like, oh, he's running a Death Skulls list. I know what it should look like, because the actual sub faction has been constructed to make the most of this unit, this unit, and this unit, and there we go. And it fits within the lore, and they play test it. What rules can we give this that will make these units good so that they play in this way? Cool. All right, brilliant. That's
it's
excellent.
like Samhain Windhost or Death Skulls Speed War. You know that it's going to be all bikes and vehicles. There should be some sort of structure to it that makes sense.
And at the moment, it's like, here's the faction and the sub faction and the Army of Renown, and we might just about be able to get you to play this army in a list that looks like we want it to look like. Just about. Like, so they need to definitely do better with that. If they want us to be going, I want to play this sub faction because it does this thing well, they need to do better in terms of making it do this thing well, rather than, I'll take a bit of this, 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 and we'll put together a Frankenstein's monster that does something that you'd never thought it could. Like, Eldar being the best demon summoning army in 6th edition or whatever it was. You know, I mean, like shit like that. We will create monsters.
Don't give us the opportunity.
Please don't shut the door. So I don't mind them shutting the door on this, but they need to do better in terms of fuck off, Tom. They need to do better. They need to do better at making these sub factions play how they want them to play. And I think, you mentioned Samhain. I think Craftworld Eldar really needs to be a home run.
Yes.
With that.
Yeah. They almost need to encourage and reward people for playing with how the army should play.
I think they did almost that with Space Marines. They're really close, because some of them are dog shit, but other ones, they're really good and they play in a really fun way that does somewhat reward how they should be playing. But these sub factions are all pretty new. It's a new concept for most of these books. Orcs, obviously, it's not.
Having rules for them's new though. That was the big change in 8th. So maybe they're still not quite getting it right. 'Cause third time's a charm.
Well, I mean, look, it's
Perhaps.
an evolving game, right? Like, and I love the idea that they're making strides. And then because this FAQ apparently is going to be a big deal. So this is the chapter approved book. We should see some pretty large changes, points changes adjusted across the board. Is there anything out there that you're like super keen to see, chat? Anything that you would like to see hit hard? Still praying for Plague Marines. I'd like you all to know. Praying. No.
What, to be hit
points
hard?
Down. Points
Cheaper.
down. Come on, boys. Let's go. I'd really like to see that. Kill all the Hive Guard. Let Necrons be good, says Dayton.
I'd like to see gladiator tanks and storm speeders actually have points to justify them even
Okay.
existing.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like the Space Marine book could get a lot of units could come down a little bit, right? The out there weird ones, ATVs.
It just shows like how important core is.
Yeah.
You know, to how the Marine book works. A lot of the other shit, who cares? But specifically the way that Marines work and the core aura buffs, they really need that because you've got a lot of these units that are just they're to be honest with you, I think the gladiators and the storm strikes are reasonably well pointed. It's just the effectiveness of what they do is there's too much variance because they're not getting rerolls on anything, and they don't benefit from a lot of the things that can save them from basically dying, like aura invols and that kind of stuff as well. So
Okay. We've seen that people want Volkites to go down.
I mean, Volkites and Vanguard veterans are keeping that book in the mid bracket. There was no Marines in the top bracket of Austin. All the Marines were in the second bracket, floating around.
Yeah.
And that's what's keeping it relevant. And to be honest with you, I don't mind if they shaft relic contemptors with Volkites. I've got no problem with it. But there's a reason why you're seeing only those being taken, because everything else is massively inefficient for the point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And if they put the price of the Volkite up, they need to take all the other guns down, and then it'll just be a different gun people will take, and it won't do the same job. But if they don't do something about the contemptors,
it will be something that is
cheap.
less effective for the same price,
but will do a job.
It will do a worse job, and Marines will get worse. Same way they got marginally worse with Vanguard veterans, and at the same time they're churning out codexes which are hyper efficient. They're still hyper efficient. They still got rules upon rules upon rules stacked on them. We'll see how it looks now though, because I think if they hit Hive Guard, because the Nids aren't getting a book for a good few months, right? So hopefully they hit Hive Guard. And if they hit Dread Knights, then we've got an interesting matchup.
Can't we just hit all indirect fire?
No, because a lot of it's shit. Like, what are you you're gonna hit Thunderfire cannons.
I mean, like, I'm not saying to obscurity, although
you're gonna hit whirlwinds. Like, who gives a shit? Like, no one cares.
Even 3 whirlwinds, that's a massive commitment to someone's army. I don't think it would break the game having 3 of them.
Who cares? Yeah, it's just the data sheets need tweaking on like the Squig buggies. They put out too many shots. They for some reason get +1 to hit and off of a fucking Gretchen sitting on the back of it. Don't know why. For some reason, they've got the perfect profile for killing elite units. And it's the same with Hive Guard. Hive Guard will put out fucking like 36 shots. They're hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s. They get rerolls on fucking everything. They've got exploding 6s. Like, they shit the bed on that Leviathan thing. It was like it was written for Hive Guard. So hopefully they take Hive Guard and completely fucking eviscerate them, and Devil Gaunts as well. By the way, that stratagem, fucking hell, that stratagem is that. There's no way that stratagem was playtested.
I mean,
there's just no way that stratagem. What's the fucking name of it?
If you hit Hive Guard, what needs do you have? Like, I feel like an army that's just indirect fire is terrible. I feel like that's just
it's awful. It feels bad.
It's such a miserable game. Because you're like, I've hid myself as best I can,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter.
What's the point in putting the terrain down, right? Like, what's the point of any of this?
No, it's shit. It's. I don't mind stuff being good. Like everyone needs stuff that's good, but stuff that's like unavoidable. It's literally the opposite of what we had in Sixth with invisible Death Stars. I can't interact with you. Do you know what I mean? I can't interact with you. So,
yeah.
What's this game sucks for me as a player. I'm not enjoying. I can't do stuff. I don't even have the illusion of being able to do stuff. You know, I can't even kill a few guys or get a few points whilst you're maxing out your score, and it's just a feels bad experience, man.
I think engaging with someone with no opportunity for them to engage back is just a terrible piece of design, really. It feels weird. Like it definitely looks weird, which is the other follow up. Talking about looking weird, yeah. They're moving the show on. Excellent segue.
Sorry about that.
That's
Sorry
fine.
about the noise.
Moving on. It should be the conversation about the coverage from the weekend. Oh, call me Quinn. I'm so sorry. The coverage from the weekend. Because we did have a large event this weekend in Austin, Texas. I was doing coverage at the weekend, so I wasn't able to tune in at any point. But some things came up which were fun. Apparently, some of the games were quite fun to watch. John, did you keep an eye on it? Logan, did you have to keep an eye on any of the games?
I was on holiday, wasn't I? So, no.
And I was at an event. I came back from my event and saw the very last round, I think it was. And
wait, sorry.
Yeah.
T-Man Cash just said that AOS hit the nail on the head and how more interactive they are over 40k secondaries. Are battle tactics the equivalent of secondaries in AOS?
So you choose
So you were taking a massive shit on those.
No. I was saying. I said.
Yes, you were.
Hold on.
Yes, you were.
They can be easy.
I'm going to expose you live on the podcast.
The system is good, but the actual battle tactics themselves are far too simple, right? So, what I like, is you choose your secondary at the beginning of your turn, and you have to achieve it at the end of your turn.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Yeah, and I think that there's room for some great narrative ones, because really, how do you design good ones that are game reaching like you do for the current secondaries in 40k, where you're you're sticking 4 units in some of them you're just not taking at all and you're unable to take, right? Yeah. Whereas if you have some core functional ones, and then your army can do some specific stuff, because you can tie them into units. You can tie them into your allegiance abilities effectively. Yeah, your battle traits. So you can tie them in together, which is funny. So then you're able to I think it's much better. I think it feels more back and forth, because you can try and stop your opponent's next one maybe, but the actual ones that they have in AOS are pretty lackluster at best. You the first 3 that you do are the same 3 all the time, and then it's I wonder if I could score the other 2. So it's not the ones that they've created aren't particularly good. I would like to see better ones, but that's the side point. I think that would be a better way for 40k secondaries to go, basically.
Yeah, I don't mind something that is a thing that is completely within your control for a turn, and so you do it once, you can't do it again, I presume.
Yeah.
Is that
and then you either succeed it or don't succeed it at the end of your turn, and I think that's genuinely quite exciting, especially in 40k when you can, if you have enough, you could probably design some pretty thematic ones around either different units or just your army wholesale, right? Which I think would be quite good, especially for things because some of them feel very uninteractive.
It's based. It reminds me of the Maelstrom cards.
Yes.
Some of the ones for the factions themselves were very much, this is how your army's playing. You're going to score this because that's what your list does anyway.
Yeah.
To some extent.
But that was a side note. Anyway, cast 3 spells if you're a 1,000 son.
I've got one psyker and he can do 2 spells.
No,
Great.
but then you change your list, right? Like you change your list to try and create to try and achieve those secondaries a little bit. Okay, so John, you said you watched the coverage at the weekend. Oh, go on.
And that's the same. That's the same way as you change your list now. Like a lot of Space Marine players have taken librarians out of their list entirely because when you would run them before, but now you can't do a Border Witch against Grey Knights. Now you're giving up whatever that Glory of Magnus secondary is for Thousand Suns. So yeah, it's the same thing. You do adapt and change. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, Rob. I just wanted to.
Well, honestly, Logan, especially like where your head's like with games, and I know how your brain works. Like, not like in detail, but like I would assume it's also more like the drama per turn is more engaging. Like when you do coverage for 40k, it's like, okay, another point in the bank. Like I've said this quote before, and this is a me quote, and if people don't agree with it, then feel free. This isn't everyone, but like. Everything in a game of 40k, everything is important, but it feels like not everything is vital.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be in the position which we are with a lot of the American games, wherein it's sit behind the wall for turns 1 and 2, get 20 points on a primary, and put down your banners or whatever, and get another 15 points over the 2 turns. Doing whatever you're doing for your completely non-interactive secondary that you've picked, and then turn 3 jump out and eat everything, and then you win. Or stay behind the wall and maybe you get a good trade and you stop the other guy getting a 10 points and he only gets a 5 points, and then you win by 5 or 6 points, maybe 8 points, because you've actually got better secondaries than the other guy has in the matchup. So that is that's not a game. That's
it's like an exercise. It's like
not
farming,
entertaining,
right?
yeah.
It's like an exercise in weird farming, which kind of brings us onto the conversation, because this is still blows my mind a little bit. There was an event, one of the matches that happened in Austin at the weekend. You had 2 Art of War guys. You had was it Siegler versus John Lennon, and they both scored 92 points, and that feels really weird. Like, and I'm not talking. We'll talk about the fact that 2 players on the same team scored 92 points in a moment. That's irrelevant. That's a side note. What I mean is any game, like pick any game. Someone's like, oh, I scored 94. My opponent scored 89. That's the weirdest thing to hear from a game. We both almost scored the maximum points available. He won. It like sounds super. You would think a close game would be like 49-50, right? Or like 55-49. But it's literally, it boggles my mind a little bit as a result, right? To watch 2 people max scores, right? Like, do you not feel that's odd, John?
Maybe that's why they're looking at doing something to the primary, because essentially at the moment you can basically you go on an objective, you get knocked off in their turn, then you go back on in your turn type of thing, and there's that kind of ebb and flow to it. So perhaps that's the problem, is that at the moment you're basically, unless you really fuck up, you're going to score 35 to 45 on primary quite convincingly.
Maybe you should. Maybe you have to hold. The longer you hold it, the more points you score, or something. And maybe that's going to be one of the ways that we're going to see the primary change. But Logan, do you not feel it's like odd, especially from a coverage perspective? But like, I think generally, do you not find it a game where you talk about the result, but the result is like almost max points? Do you not feel that's odd? Oh, you've turned your mic off.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was muted the whole time then, and I wasn't.
You weren't.
You were hearing the noise in the background. Okay. It looks weird, right? Because scoring that many points, you'd think, oh yeah, I'm doing amazing, I'm doing great, and you are doing amazing and great, but the other guy's doing amazing and great. But it just highlights how just non-interactive it is, you know. And it actually comes down to those 1 or 2 interactions, and that's fine at the very, very highest level, where it can come down to one or two interactions. They are the margins of error, but yeah, it's probably too easy to max a lot of things. I think it's too easy to max primary. I think it's too easy to max a lot of secondaries, and I think if they can be looking at secondaries that are a reliable like 8 points rather than a reliable 12 points, it makes for a more interesting game. Primaries is a difficult one. I'm not sure. If they changed it maybe to 4 points rather than 5, so you're like 8 and 12 rather than 10, 15. And it just forces you to go for those hold 3 or hold more plays, then that's a more interactive game. Because if you know you can play 3 turns and get 30 points without really risking anything at all, and then you make one risky play, that's why you're ending up with these 90 versus 90 kind of score lines, basically.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It just doesn't feel. I don't know. I just don't feel it. It feels very exciting. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know.
I really fucking hope we don't get priority rolls. Oh my god, please no.
As a person that can roll 1s and 2s like nobody's business, I don't want to
There's been no suggestion about that. It's just fucking.
It was in the chat. The chat are always trying to.
Manny is waiting somewhere for priority rolls to come in, so he can
just roll 6s.
Well, that's why we get to talk about the coverage from the weekend, because Manny, who's been kicking it all over the UK with his different lists, as well as people like Vic VJ and a bunch of other guys who did, I think, also come first this weekend. An event was over in the US trying to take out that event and was very close to England because the Art of War guys have dominated. The Art of War guys have won every single one of the Warhammer.
They've won all 3.
All 3.
Well, one person has won all 3.
The Siegler has won all 3. So talk to me about that. What do you guys think of that? Do you think it's a bit like, okay, again, this is common? I've seen a lot of comments online that he is the GOAT, the greatest of all time, and then that's because he's won 3 Games Workshop events, not anything else. Well, I mean, he's won other stuff.
I mean, he's the most informed.
Yeah,
that's fair to say. I don't have a problem with saying he's the most informed player at the moment.
It reminds me of Formula One when Schumacher was doing really well in the 90s. He had the best car, so he set up for success, and then was a great driver. So it feels like being part of Art of War sets him up for great success, and then he's a great player as well. And so it just makes me kind of feel like if you're doing it as a job, of course you're going to be doing well if you're putting in that much time and effort. So it becomes kind of almost like a tiering to me, like
but that's
it should be rewarded, right? But it still makes
it
dull to watch for me. I'm just like, cool, they've won again, cool. I don't know.
I found it quite exciting. Like I think in the end it's an anticlimax, obviously, because Manny wasn't able to get the job done in the end, because of a couple of things, some aberrant dice performance, and also some questionable decision making early on in the game, overcommitting. But for me, shout out to Davidson.
Hero.
For me, I like seeing excellence. Yeah. So if someone's going on it was no different to like when Josh Roberts was winning everything previously, like in the UK. I think that's really fucking cool. Like if someone can be if someone can consistently do well in something, it's actually an okay game.
Yes.
You know, if it's random as fuck and there's different winners every week, then there's probably a bit too much variance in it. If someone's winning consistently, then it's probably actually in an okay place. And he's done it with 3 different. Has he done it with 3 different factions?
Sisters?
Or was it double Admech and Drukari?
At one point?
Yeah, it's double Admech. No, Sisters was John Lennon. Yeah, so it's double Admech and Drukari. But yeah, I think that for me it's quite interesting. I definitely don't think on paper he should have won that final. I think Manny should have won that final on paper, but games are not played on paper; they're played on the tabletop. So, but yeah, it's cool because there's a target now. Now that's the narrative now, right?
Yeah, he's now the villain.
It's boring, whatever.
Yeah,
he's not the
extent.
villain's a bit harsh.
Well, you know what I mean, like the pantomime
guy.
wrestler sort of situation.
Yes,
is what
he has a target on his back that and you should talk that up. And I think this leads into what we're going to talk about in a bit about the broadcast tone. I like driving a narrative. Not forging a narrative. I like driving a narrative in my commentary with regards to personalities. I think it's really important that people are invested in personalities because realistically, you're not watching tournament streams to look at the models because you can't fucking see them. You're not watching tournament streams to like do anything other than listen to these guys talk.
Yes.
So they need to talk about something. I want the players to talk. I want the commentators to talk, and I want them to be talking in a way that sells a story to me that makes me. I want to care about this dice roll. Why should I care about this dice roll?
Yeah.
I want to care about the result of this match because I have no stake in this match at all. Why should I care in the result of it? If you're only watching for the purposes of I want to find out more about 40k and get better at it, watching tournament 40k is not going to help you because no one's explaining in detail their decision-making processes. You're going to have to sign up for one of these services to get that kind of thing, or watch on a YouTube thing, or jump on a forum. When you're watching tournament broadcast, for me, that's all about being invested in what's going on. And I think for that, Siegler winning consistently, Art of War taking top 4 spots at New Orleans or whatever it was. Like, I think it's cool. Like, especially when we start traveling in numbers again and you can get regional rivalries in the same way that we should have probably got with ETC and WTC on maybe a higher level of promotion that Games Workshop have never given those platforms. But like, I love that kind of thing. There's all kinds of stories and narratives you can tell, whilst obviously also giving an accurate description of what's going on commentary.
I agree. And similar, I try to do the same. One of the interesting parts, actually, you and me discussing WhatsApp yesterday or today, I can't remember which it was, I think it was yesterday, is actually I often try to big up the units on the board less than the players in some situations. Like, I think when it's consistent, like it has been with the Art of War guys, as you've pointed out, like when it's consistent like that, it's much easier because they're very recognizable. Plus, they're also content creators, so it's easier to like already have engaged with them on a face-by-face basis. When you're like cold introducing like a new player, like on the top tables, it's fairly difficult to create and craft a story around them. But when I'm doing it myself, I quite often try to big up the key units that are on the board, and this is the important like story behind it. I think it makes it much easier if you're a commentator who literally works with and has a business relationship with the players on the tabletop. That makes it much easier to achieve. And what I like to see. And ultimately, I think maybe this is just me, though. I'm quite often less involved in the artist than I am in the art. I quite like the song. I'm not too bothered about the band. Like I understand that there's context that those give in many situations, but I quite often just go on.
So my counterpoint to that is there's no art being created. Like, there's nothing that you can just stand back. Me just standing back and watching the stream, it's not giving you enough. You need to create that storyline, I think. And when we focus on, so effectively, you talking up the units would be like me talking up the character, or a League of Legends caster talking up the champion, and yeah. And you can talk about that. But it's a dangerous territory because you can, like,
you're putting weight onto a unit doing the work. Almost.
Are we going to be watching tournament streams that Games Workshop are broadcasting and them telling us how good these units are? Because that sounds like Warhammer Plus to me.
No, because in some situations, maybe
buy the
maybe
army
it-
in the
maybe-
link below.
Maybe it's been a
kind of thing.
system, like a systematic development for me, because I'll go to an event. For instance, someone invited me to Sweden next year, right? So I'll go to, very much like I went to Sweden 2 years ago, and I don't know any of the people, right? I know a couple of the people. So when I end up with 2 players on stream who I'm cold meeting, having got maybe 3 minutes of FaceTime with them, it's very unlikely I've got 3 hours of conversation about those as people. Like little, and I mean, in some situations you've got some really really nice stuff. Like when I was in Sweden, they have a deaf community who play Warhammer, and they play with the other. Like they bring like a tablet along and they type out the stuff because the other guys often don't speak sign language and that sort of stuff. And you're like, oh, that's exciting, but really, there's not that much intrigue between the players for me. So maybe for me, systemically, like I've been to an event, I'm like, okay, I don't get much time to, like, hello, nice to meet you for the first time ever. I can't wait to cover your game. Yeah. So maybe it's slightly different to like
I'm not saying that like you should be talking about who they are as a person, but like I like to talk up the decision-making process, you know, and that from the plays. So not to go completely off topic, but when I'm commentating Street Fighter, I see it as my job to when I'm doing like a top 8 bracket for a finals day, I see it as my job to convey to the people watching that these are the best players in the world. And what you're watching now is like the most important matches of Street Fighter that you could be watching at this moment anywhere in the world. Out of all the people that are streaming, all the people that are playing online, these are the best matches. And I need to explain to you why these are the best matches. And I generally do that by going, well, the thing that and you can do this in 40K. The reason why Richard Siegler is excellent at this game is because what he's done here is this, and this, and that is why this is excellent. This is a great play by him. How's Manny gonna come back from this? He's gonna fluff all his shots and he's gonna sped. That's a shame. Blah blah blah. But that's kind of the story, you know. That you have to talk up these guys, and it's gonna be really annoying for people that have proximity to the players, because you're gonna probably watch a Paul and Nick or someone else commentating and thinking, oh, they're just brown nosing. No pun intended. You're just being a sycophant. Or the other side that I've seen people mention is, oh, you're just saying this stuff about Siegler because you work with him and he's part of your team, and you're saying. But I would like to see more of it rather than reining it in. And you're not allowed to say nice things about Siegler and Lennon and Brad and Jack Harpster and all the other people and Mark Perry that are involved with Art War. I would like to see more of it. Like, I want to know who these guys. Tell me who these guys. Do your research when you're coming to sit down. Who are these players? Where are they from? What have they won previously? Like, what's their track record? What do they innovate with their lists? Like, do your research, because that's what we need. That's the caster's job in esports, and we're looking to go that direction, right?
Yeah.
Tell me the story of this. I don't need to know like he lived with his mum and he went to school here and he likes the color red. You know, I mean, you might need it, but I don't need that. But yeah, like, tell me why I should care about this guy over any of why should I care about this player? Like, what does he do? Why is he good? Why is he on this table that we're watching? Why is he on table 1? Why is he on table 2? What's he done to get here? What are the choices that he's making in this game that are excellent? And then hopefully you can like start to explain to people why these and they'll understand, and their IQ will raise, and that's the right thing to do here. You know, picking Stranglehold was the right choice in this situation, or over this secondary, and you can talk through it and explain it. And I hope that we get more of that on streams. I want more aggrandizement of players and their decision making rather than like less of it.
I think that you've touched on it perfectly there, because what you were saying is what I was wanting to experience, but in reality, all I did see was half of that they were talking about him as a player, but they're not going into what he was doing.
Yes.
When they were discussing the table, it was like, that's what's happened play by play, and it was just they're saying that what they were doing as a reaction rather than them going, he's about to do this and this is why, which I would have found riveting to watch.
Yes,
And without that,
and
I didn't get anything
Nanavati
from
is entirely capable of
exactly. That's more
seeing
frustrating
that
almost.
and pulling that.
Interesting.
So, yeah, cool.
I think that's an interesting take for me, and I think I learned something there. So thanks, Logan. Because and again, that's difficult because I think it's reflective and maybe works when you do have several high-profile players who you can almost guarantee are going to be in the top draw. Like, I think it's more challenging. I mean, you go to LVO, it doesn't matter who the 600 other people are, right? It's that 20 or 30 people who have got the outside shot. So you go on.
So to give you an example of that, I do an event also in Las Vegas called Evo. And the Evo Championships are the biggest open bracket fighting game events in the world. 18,000 people go there, and they're all going there to play. The biggest games there will be Street Fighter and Tekken. They'll get 2,000 to 3,000 people trying to play. And they play over the course of 2 days, and you get obviously a grand final with 2 people. It's a very similar. They don't do the Swiss system. It's a double elimination system. So if you lose, you go to a loser's bracket, and then you lose again, you're out the tournament. So some people's weekends are very short, and then they just hang around and they're watching. Other people, they've got to play a very long time. But I will be working the commentary desk from the Friday through to the Sunday. When I'm working the Sunday, I know the people that I'm going to be commentating are the best players in the world. I'll know everything that they've done. I'll know the characters they've used previously. I'll know the events that they've won. I can give you head-to-head match stats between these guys when they've played each other previously, all of that stuff. When I'm commentating on Friday and it's 10 o'clock in the morning and you've got fucking Joe Schmo versus Shin Akuma 666 playing and they barely know what they're doing, that's when my game knowledge comes in. And I don't have a story to tell about these guys. I have a story to tell about what's happening on the table. And that's the stuff that I think Scrivo was touching at, wanting to hear. Like, what's the board state? Like, describe the board state to me. What are the potential situations that could happen here? Like, what do the players need to be looking out for? What are the plays they could make? They might not make. You might be wrong, but you can at least speculate. This is a danger area. This has a threat range of 23 inches. You need to watch out for that. This Vanguard veteran unit can advance and charge here, so I need to worry about there's a heroic intervention threat behind this wall. Needs to be wary of that. And you're kind of pointing out to the people at home that are just looking at a board, they're not going to understand or see any of this shit. So to kind of give that to them would be really, really interesting to me, I think, more so than yuck.
Yeah,
they're
like,
the best.
and I guess the follow-up conversation, because I'm like, as you're talking, I'm analysing my process as I go through it, and I think also
I'm not doing this to kind of like be preachy, and it's just something I'm passionate about, and I've obviously done it for over a decade now, and it's I really enjoy it.
Same, and I think actually the conversation's really healthy, because what's the best way to converse about it, especially when we see other people doing it, like we saw at the weekend, and maybe the conversation is how difficult is it as a caster. How difficult is it as a caster when you're emotionally involved, when they're your friends, or maybe even like colleagues, like we saw with Nick and the Art of War guys, because Nick constantly doing the coverage, that's got to be difficult for him to separate out that that conversation. And I'm not saying that he's not doing it well, but I'm just saying it must be difficult to separate out that conversation, especially.
One of the guys that's been coming to our events that I run, Street Fighter events in London, for 11 years, this past weekend won one of the biggest events in the world put on by Red Bull Kumite in Las Vegas. And I wasn't able to go because of COVID restrictions, and they just booked local commentators. But if I'd have been commentating that finals, he went 3-0 down. It's a first to 5 game, and he went 3-0 down and ended up winning 5-3. So you can imagine how football hooligan I would have been on the mic, and I'd have lost all sense of professionalism whatsoever. That might have been absolutely amazing for the viewers, or it might have been terrible for them. I don't know. But I 100% can tell you that if Nick Nanavati is commentating LVO for thousands of dollars prize purse, and he's probably going to be playing, he's not going to be commentating, but hypothetically, and Richard Siegler is in the final, and it all comes down to a couple of plays, he is absolutely going to be emotionally invested. Now, that might make for fascinating viewing because he's so emotionally invested, and you might be so emotionally invested. But I'd rather people are emotionally invested than not.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Like but I think if you're a caster, you should be emotionally invested anyway. And if you're not, you need to ask yourself why you're even there. Like that's already like that's a non-starter. I think what I think is most interesting is the conversation that maybe leads on from the event is the ability to upplay a player and downplay another player, not even by intent, just by coincidence or just by emotional investment, right? By being there. Something I try to check quite often for myself whenever I'm at an event and one of my friends is playing. I try, if anything, I do that classic thing where I try to be more mean to my friend who's playing on the table in my head, and I try and give the other person the board state, because I mean, like,
I'm like hypercritical to the guy that I know, and the other guy I'm giving all of the slack.
And I try and give it away to the other person and just say like this is the thing that you need. Like, yeah, I try and go the other way with it just to try and check my own biases, because unfortunately for me, like the pool of players is fairly small, and because I've been to so many events and I've done so many of these things and I've covered so many of their games, we're at a level now. Like, I'm just like, oh, you know how this works. We've done this before. This is great. Let's hang out and do this again. So it just thinks that's one of those things. I just worry about, because this is one of the things as well for next year. We've got WTC, got Worlds, Age of Sigmar Worlds. Like, what's the right way to cover these games? Yeah. And to lead on to the story, because in some ways, how that story, especially if you're doing it for Games Workshop and you do it on their channel, that really purports a story to the audience, which is probably the biggest the story that they'll get the most, right? Like that the largest amount of people are going to be affected by the telling of that story. And so one of the interesting things is what story they're trying to tell, basically, is what I'm saying. And it's just interesting to watch, I guess.
I just want to jump in on behalf of Tom, who is probably very distracted from painting because he's been typing far too much. Anyone that makes the ignorant statement that Manny is playing Flavor of the Month and does that apparently make him good? The cool thing about Flavor of the Month is it's on the menu for everybody, right? So anyone can take the list. Anyone can put these lists together, and everyone is going to these tournaments with the list that they believe is actually the one that's going to win for them, right? So Manny trying out loads of cool stuff and different things actually shows that he's at a really high level, because he's piloting lists he's played for a month and a half against guys like that have been playing Drukari since they came out, against guys that have been playing Admech for 5 months. They've drilled these matches, and he's still beating them with with these lists that he's just got David in the shop to paint in a day and a half and thrown on the table, because he's fucking good. And I see it exactly the same in any competitive endeavor where it's like, oh, they're just picking the top tier. This is OP. They're being carried. Everyone at every level of competitive anything uses the best tools 100%. They can get their hands on. Yeah. In pro sports, they use the best shoes, the best rackets, bats, the best equipment, the best training, sports science. They're using whatever is at their disposal to win fairly. And as long as they're playing fairly, that's all that matters. And I think any kind of disparaging remarks about guys taking lists and net list, it's nonsense, because you have to beat people that are there, that are taking lists that genuinely think they can beat you with them. So yeah, it's a fucking
It is a
non-point.
non-point. It is a non-point because like if people are consistently playing at a certain, like, everyone has the opportunity. Like it's the same as opportunity. Everyone has it, but you're not doing it. So like, I'm sorry, but the same way, like.
And John Lennon took Forces of the Hive Mind, and he's like, oh yeah, you know what? I don't want to take 17 the Hive Guard. I think 6 is enough. And guess what? It wasn't enough.
No.
And he didn't get to the grand finals. So yeah, you know, it is what it is. I think that it's a very mid-level understanding at best, mid at best. It's a low-tier understanding of what being good at this game means. Taking a good list is arbitrary, you know. That's base level. No one is showing up to these tournaments that has a chance of winning with a list that they don't think is the fucking dog's bollocks. So moaning at people because they're taking good lists is so ridiculous. I don't understand. Anyway, that's enough time for that.
I don't think it's enough time. I think we could go on for that forever. Like I might just make small clips and keep putting them into different Facebook groups till I get kicked out of them.
Put it on the TikTok.
Basically.
The rant highlight.
I mean, we've talked about this before. Like, even like, I mean, it's insane. Like, even getting the opportunity to take lists because you know stuff ahead of time is a great opportunity, right? Like having that ability to, like, you know, there's a certain level of like pay to win in that situation as well. Like, how quickly can you turn around X Hive Guard? You know, like look at the tabletop tactics guys. They've got mini wargaming. Army after army after army available off the shelf. A book can drop, and that weekend they can take that whole book. They've got all the models ready. They're just ready to go. But they often don't, right? Like, it's a very specific, like, get the list, create the list, because that's the thing that's missing, right? Resource to have needs to be available, and some of these studios and places do have them. And then ability to create the list, which seems to be the sticking point.
But what's between that and, like, you know, McLaren having the resources to put together the best car? You know, I can't build a Formula One car. I haven't got the resources to do it. You know, whatever two-bob team that's at the bottom of the rankings hasn't got the money that McLaren has. They have got. It is what it is. You know, it is what it is. You still have to drive the fucking thing. And it's a game of decisions. It's a game with dice in. Like, to be able to consistently get great results in a dice game, you have to be making good decisions. So yeah, absolutely, I'm not hearing it.
Yeah, same. All right, well, I think that's been a good show. I think it's been fun. I think there's been some good gossip. Some news as well. What's the
AOS meta in Australia? I'm fascinated by this.
No, it's not.
It's the Wild West.
Right, let's not talk about the AOS in America at the minute. Jesus Christ. Like, all right, I'm going to just put something out there, and I don't think this necessarily applies to 40k, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like, those Games Workshop events are the softest meta you're going to find, like, in my opinion. Like, that's the comfiest seal clubbing you're ever going to get. Like, you're just going to go there and just, like, absolute whack-a-mole, in my opinion. And it was also true, very importantly, for the Games Workshop events here in Nottingham at Warhammer World. Same situation. You had like a couple of sharks turn up, and then some monsters just like it was just right. So I think that's quite interesting, because I don't know, just to flip it back to 40k, I don't know how you end up taking out the Art of War guys at this point. I don't think it's possible. They play too much. You can't beat them, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels that's the situation.
To beat all of them seems very, very hard, right? Because it's not just, I mean, it is one guy that's winning all of them, but it's not just one guy. Like, you know, John Lennon could have easily been in the grand finals. You know, the other, I can't remember whether it was Orlando or New Orleans, but they got top 4, all of the top 4 spots. And it's like, Tom's on a Scott Pilgrim mission to take them all out. I love that. Excellent. If you want to be Nick Nanavati's girlfriend, then you're going to have to beat the whole house. I think that there's definitely people that can beat them. 100%. Ziegler can lose. He could lose to guys in the house, definitely. But I love excellence, man. I love it. So that house is full of excellent players playing each other every day, getting more excellent, and we need to definitely do something in order to keep up with that. And I'm not saying that the Art of War are better players than we have in Europe, because I'm sure we could send 2 Polish players, 2 UK players, couple of others, and it would be fine. They've got strength in numbers, and we haven't got strength in numbers. We only had Manny there, right? So LVO will be very interesting, and that needs to be the narrative. We sent Manny, couldn't get the job done. Okay, cool. We'll send Manny again, but we're also gonna send another guy, and we'll see what happens there. And then LVO, we know that there's going to be more of us going out there, and it's going to be exciting, and that's the narrative right now. I don't care if Games Workshop come out and say, wow, the Art of War guys are just completely swamping the results right now, and just put over Art of War big, like the NWO, like a faction,
nice,
like a stable.
Yeah.
And you've got Hollywood Hulk Ziegler at the top with the title belt, and all the other guys around him. And who's going to come and defeat this menace? Well, it's going to be, it might be Robbo, it might be Josh, it could be any number of people. And hopefully we get more people go over there. Could be Harrison, as someone mentioned.
Could be Innes.
It could be Innes, baby, the baby.
Oh, yeah.
Boss baby. Boss baby
could
himself.
Could be Chucky. Who knows? Whoever it could be. But yeah, there's loads of players, and I guess that's the thing that makes WTC so cool, right? It's the one time when you see all of these players in the same place.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's a fucking cool narrative. And the LVO, it's the cool thing about LVO. You get people flying in from all over, and that's what makes the event I was talking about, Evo, so fun. It's such a big thing that it's the top of the calendar. You fly in, you got the best of the best from the 4 corners of the earth, and that's why that title means so much. And I would love to see more of that. It's this Games Workshop series that's happened, these 3 tournaments, for me, should be used as a springboard to launch this narrative into the sky of competitive 40k and regional rivalries, and putting people up as targets and all that kind of stuff. And I hope to see a lot more of it. I want to see Games Workshop do more of it as well. So hopefully Brant does as much as he can.
Yeah, me too. All right, great. With a commitment to definitely get them Vanguard vets done for next week. And John... And John, have you got any commitments? You haven't got a tournament this weekend, though, right?
No, but I'm going to paint 2 Death Dreads tomorrow just to annoy Logan, because apparently I can paint more models in a day than
wow.
he's done in 6 months. But
2
he's a
whole
very
Death
busy
Dreads.
Man doing actual
Amazing.
work, though. I know, right? But he's a busy man doing proper work, so
Yeah, that's
it's
fair.
excusable,
That's
really.
fair. I'm going to be live. If you guys are watching right now, I'm actually going to be live for the entire of tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m. I'm gonna. So
Painting orcs.
I've printed a set of orc terrain. Looks pretty fantastic. It's so good.
So
and
good.
I would like to get it finished and photoed. So I'm just gonna do a whole day stream with me trying to nail it out. 1 set of terrain, this brush, in 1 day, 1 detail brush.
You're going to need a bigger brush, man.
That's right. So I'll be online all of tomorrow, which I hope should be fun to do, and see what
That's
you
a
guys
great
think of
thing.
that. I haven't done a whole day before. I know I have done whole days before, but I haven't done a whole day in a while, so it'll be fun to do. So looking forward to that. John, you got anything you're doing this week?
No, I'm playing proper 40k tomorrow rather than Crusade, but I am playing 1,500 points because it's a guy's first game in forever. So we're going smaller just to see for him. He's playing Necrons, so it's going to be my first experience of the updated Necrons, which should be interesting.
That is interesting. Logan, you got any plans before next Thursday? Oh, interesting.
The video editing.
Nice.
And trying to make my businesses successful.
Good.
And the missus happy. They're important things to me.
So not painting.
If I can fit painting Warhammer in there somewhere, I will do so because it's important to me. But not as important as that other thing.
But it's lesser. Yeah. It's lesser.
All right. Well, it's been lovely talking to you both. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
We can't wait to see you guys next week. No, the AOS app is not on iOS yet. I apologise. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for a very big day. 8 hours. Can Rob print one board of terrain in 8 hours? That's a great question. It feels achievable.
You know what you should do?
Yeah.
No.
Set a camera up and just stream the print process.
Oh.
It will do gangbusters on Twitch.
Shut up, will it? Will it?
Of course it will. Definitely.
Yeah, it would. I'd watch that.
Like put some I don't know if you should put music behind it or not, but I feel like it would be very therapeutic to just watch this thing come to life line by line.
Interesting.
I think it'll be pretty cool.
All right. Okay, I'll do that.
Something to try for the future. Perhaps.
Okay. Oh, yeah. That's okay. I don't know. I mean, some people get kind of hypnotized at club night.
ASMR printing stream, exactly.
Does that already exist?
No. You could pioneer it.
I don't want to pioneer it, do I?
The ASMR Wargamer. You better register that channel before I do.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay, deal. The link to the store, by the way, for the 40k terrain is in the chat if you guys are interested. We are taking limited orders at the minute because it goes live next week. So if you would like to get some terrain, do message me and let me know. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks very much. Love you loads. See you all tomorrow. Thanks to my co-hosts. See you guys soon. Look after yourself.
Love you, Rob. Love you, John. Take care.